There is something weird about weird fiction. It gives us a brief glimpse into a world we are familiar with while also being, sometimes literally, alien. The unknown is everywhere. From the first page to the last, we are left wondering what we just experienced, what our minds conjured from the forgotten depths of our dreams, and what nightmares we will have after. The king of this genre of fiction, who in turn created his own afterwards, is H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft is a controversial character. Racist, xenophobic, anti-Semitic. You can't really talk about Lovecraft without all of these coming up, without people dismissing his work immediately. He's a writer where, if you read between the lines in some of his stories, wouldn't work today. Perhaps a reason why when adapting his work for video games, TV, radio, etc., the time period of the late 1800s to the 1940s never really changes. In adapting his work, they milk it, for the sweet cow of Lovecraftian fiction never dries out. But in eating that Cthulhu cookie, they leave behind the Marxist marshmallow fluff, racist raspberry pie, and nihilistic Nutella. One would argue that you might not even bother adapting or using Lovecraft if you aren't going to accept everything that comes with it. You do not have to like a person for their views of things. You can sometimes separate the fiction from the author, but with Lovecraft and some others of his time and even today, the political views are part of the fiction. One does not exist without the other. The now renowned fish people of Innsmouth are an ugly view of the Irish immigration of the time. The melting pot of Red Hook and the horrors within are just Lovecraft venting of his time in New York with his wife and living there, how he hated it and how he wished to be home. He conjured up monsters and witches out of the people he saw. His famed cat. As I'm writing this, or as I've wrote this, I was listening to Cyclopean and the album The King in Yellow, a word and character that is now synonymous with Lovecraft, despite the man not having created Hastur, the King in Yellow, the Yellow King. That honor goes to another legend of weird fiction, and maybe even the father of it, Robert W. Chambers. Published in 1895, the book is a collection of short stories that involves a mysterious play that if you read it or even see the sign associated with the play, you are driven insane. Hastur, the King in Yellow, is perhaps the author of this odd play, a god of sorts. His home is the Cyclopean city of Carcosa. Spookiness ensues. Lovecraft borrowed the names for simple mention in a story or two, but the overall weirdness of some of the stories in King in Yellow, the politics, occasionally the writing style, is easily found in Lovecraft's own tales. Lovecraft, in life, struggled to find his own voice. A quote of his from a letter to a friend, or something like that, is, "I have my Dunsany stories, my Poe stories, but where, oh where are my Lovecraft stories?" The latter mentions also being influences to the horror writer. Not the only writer to grace the scene, other legends like Robert E. Howard came from weird fiction, with his Solomon Kane and Conan the Barbarian being his most famous. R.E. Howard would also almost create the template for adventure fiction with El Borak, a gunfighter in the Middle East, and without that we probably wouldn't even have Indiana Jones, Dirk Pitt, and the like. You can also thank Howard for the Weird West subgenre, thanks to his story, The Horror from the Mound. Clark Ashton Smith, August Derleth, Robert Bloch, who would go on to write Psycho, all came from weird fiction. They were also part of Lovecraft's circle of friends, bringing a sort of interconnected work. Weird fiction, the pulps, gave way to modern sci-fi and horror. It's a legacy that is sometimes messy to dive into, but once you do, the stars will align and everything will be right. And the universe you are about to explore is full of never-ending possibilities. All thanks to a group of young writers and one man, H.P. Lovecraft.
Now, at my end, I can fully see. My last case opened me a new fear, a real fear, a fear of myself, of what I am, and of what I've always been. All that I was is now lost. Hope, purpose, pleasure, all meaningless. I now walk in the shadows between worlds, and it is there I have finally glimpsed upon what lives in the dark corners of the earth.
Hey guys, Calypso here. Congrats, you made it to the end of the video. I just wanted to get a Lovecraft video out. I like Lovecraft. I love Lovecraft. I've been reading him a lot again recently, trying to get through the entire collection of stories. I'm halfway there. Out of all the years I've read Lovecraft, I always keep going back to, you know, the mainstays: Call of Cthulhu, Colorado Space, Dunwich Horror at Red Hook. I keep A Shadow Over Innsmouth. I keep rereading a bunch of those rather than going through the entire collection, even though I have the entire collection, as well as the rest of the Cthulhu mythos that were written by August Derleth and Robert E. Howard and Clark Ashton Smith, all these other friends of his, part of the Lovecraft Circle, or the Mythos 7, or the Mythos Circle, whatever I put in the video. I might as well, get through that. So I've been playing Sinking City again, trying to finally finish it for a review, to get a review out for you guys. I just covered Scorn recently. H.R. Giger and Basinski are all inspired by Lovecraft in some way or form, I'm sure. And yeah, I've just been playing through some games, reading the books. I think you guys should do that as well. If you haven't read Lovecraft, go ahead and read Lovecraft. I didn't talk heavily about the racism thing. I might save that for the Sinking City. I know it is a subject that you can talk about and avoid. Most people avoid just nowadays because, like, it was a thing. He was an asshole. He was a racist, whatever. I don't know if I'll go in depth anymore on that in the Sinking City review that I'm working on, or other things. I don't know. But yeah, so I mean, he's a good writer. He had his faults, but he's a good writer. And I definitely think you should check out Conan and Robert E. Howard and everything basically from Pulp Fiction and the weird tales or adventure stories magazines from the 20s and 30s and 40s. I know Razorfist has talked about Pulp Fiction quite a lot. He recommends some really good things. You can go check out his videos. But yeah, H.P. Lovecraft, he's a good writer. You should probably read him or listen to him. I listen to all my stuff. So I highly recommend going on Audible. The H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society has released the entire collection, as well as his essays and other literature of Lovecraft that inspired him or that is Lovecraftian in nature. The guy created his own genre, for crying out loud, after his passing, and with August Derleth and every other writer contributing to the mythos, they sort of created the Lovecraftian genre that we have now, that everybody milks without giving credit to Lovecraft or whatever. I don't know. But he is public domain, so if you guys want to go and create your own Lovecraftian things, you can. Yeah. So yeah, I've been Calypso. I'll see you guys the next one. Go read some Lovecraft. Go listen to some Lovecraft or his contemporaries. Stephen King is another one where he's just Lovecraft up and down. I'm not personally a fan of Stephen King, but to each their own. Yeah, I've been Calypso. See you guys in the next one. Bye.